Elhamdülillahi Rabbil Alemin ve salatu ve selamu ala seyyidil murselin ve ala alihi ve sahabeti ecma'in. Subhaneke la ilme lena illa ma alamtena inneke entel alimul hakim. Subhaneke la fehme lena illa ma fehemtena inneke entel cevadul kerim. Ve kul Rabbi zidni ilma. Euzu billahi mineşşeytanirracim. كتب عليكم إذا حضر أحدكم الموت إن ترك خيرا الوصية للوالدين والأقربين بالمعروف حقا على المتقين فمن بدله بعدما سمعه فإنما إثمه على الذين يبدلونه إن الله سميع عليم فمن خاف من موص جنفا أو إثما فأصلح بينهم فلا إثم عليه إن الله غفور رحيم. Sadaqallahu Mawlana al-Azim. So continuing the discussion of wasiyah, or will and last testament. So we mentioned yesterday that originally, or initially I should say, the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was that those people who were leaving inheritance, so that inheritance would basically go to their children and other relatives, like parents, brothers, sisters, uncles, etc., others who were not children. They could give up to 1/3, they could write a will up to 1/3 of their wealth as they liked, in proportions that they liked. Now this was further subsequently abrogated by the ayat al-mawarith, or the ayat of the Holy Quran, which specifies the laws of inheritance. Now it's also interesting that the laws of inheritance that are mentioned in the Quran is one of the few chapters of fiqh in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala details the discussion to each inheritor, the specific proportion. And there's very few masail, or very few issues outside of the scope of the details of those ayats, because it's a very sensitive issue, as probably all of us realize. You know, wealth is something which people are very much attracted to, and so therefore the distribution of wealth, which people are hankering after and trying to acquire as much as possible, needs to be very, very precisely distributed, according to the laws of inheritance. So what happened was that ultimately when the ayat muwarith were revealed, so as Nabi alayhi salatu mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given all inheritors their due portion, fala, there's no portion or no will, la wasiyata li warith, so there is no will or testament that can be granted to an inheritor. So someone who is getting a particular proportion in the Sharia, as according to those ayats, we cannot give them above and beyond that in will and testament. Now, if, for example, there might be a situation where the inheritors are all quite well off, and some specific inheritor which is given a due portion, for example, parents, or children, or somebody else who happens to be really in need, and so if all of the inheritors agree, okay, we'll allow an extra portion for them. Okay? So this will be acceptable with the condition of the acceptance of all of the inheritors. Similarly, a will and testament for other than inheritance, so that will be permissible up to 1/3 of the wealth. For example, we can't bequeath, half of our wealth or all of our wealth to any particular person, but we can bequeath, for example, 1/3 of our wealth for charitable causes, for whatever that might be, or for any individuals who are not among the inheritors. That is permissible. Now, again, if there's a situation where somebody, requires something more above and beyond that, and all of the inheritors agree to something above and beyond the 1/3, that is also going to be permissible. Otherwise, not. Okay. So there's 3 basic things that we want to, be sure that we include in our will. And Nabi alayhi salatu mentions that if a person has some right upon him, particularly those rights that are on us, those rights that are to us, Okay, but those rights that are upon us, that's very critical. So therefore, Nabi alayhi salatu mentions that a person who has intelligence and believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the last day, he should let 3 nights go by without writing down his will and testament and testimony for those rights, particularly those things which are upon him. So the rights that others have on us, if we have debts to someone or any other type of rights, we can write those down in the will. We should write those down in the will. Also, if we have rights to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which need to be fulfilled, for example, salat or zakat or udhiyah or whatever, which is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which needs to be and can be recompensed, after the death, and that also should be mentioned in the will. And then lastly, but not leastly, of course, if certain people owe us, we can also write that in the testament. That would be collected by the inheritors. The last point that I would want to mention is that since most of us don't know what are the laws of inheritance, so it's very critical that we all connect with Ahl al-Ilm and prepare that. And at least in our will and testimony, we need to write down specifically in a legal document that our wealth and inheritance will be distributed, according to the laws of Islamic Sharia. And I would assume, although I'm not a legal specialist, but I would assume that that would be acceptable in a court of law even here or anywhere. So it would be, we would do well to connect with ulama and prepare this. Death comes at any time. So we need to have that prepared beforehand, because if we leave this world and leave those ends untied, it can cause untold grief and strife and rancor, among inheritors, which can be easily, curtailed if we'll follow these laws of Sharia, which are very critical. So I invite myself and all of us that we come to know what are our rights in that respect, prepare our will and last testament, and have it there as a legal document. And it should be also, we should have someone who is vouchsafe to ensure that that is, enacted, according to our instructions, which we call the wali. So having said that, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Who is that? Asif. Oh, that's good. So brothers can get in touch with him, and that'll be very helpful. This is a very critical issue. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. Wassalamu